What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Founders Corner. This is episode 5. My name is Trey Lansdell. I am the host of the show. I'm super excited to get into our topic for today. We got a great one for those of you that maybe are struggling a little bit with retention on your team. So our topic for today is how to stop your agents from quitting. Right? I tend to find this all the time, especially in companies that have a little bit of a model like ours where it's a team building agency model. And one of the biggest things that most people struggle with, especially in the very beginning, is how to build a team and then how to keep a team, right? And what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to feel like you're in a position, which, some of you might feel like this. You don't want to feel like you're in a position where it's like you recruit an agent and then you lose 2. Right? You get one guy licensed, you lose 3 licenses. And you're like, oh my God, every time I take a step forward, I take 3 steps backwards. I take 2 steps backwards. And it just creates this impression that you're not growing, you're stagnant, and you're just spinning your tires. So I got 5 points that I'm going to get into today about how to stop your agents from quitting. And some of these might not be exactly what you'd expect. And these are things that myself and my wife have done over the last 2 years. Changes that we have made to build one of the top teams in Canada right now and one of the top teams within our entire hierarchy within our company. We're a team that has done really, really well for retention, right? We tend to retain most of our people, and most of the people that we retain tend to go on to make a really, really good income with us, which is something that I'm very, very, very proud of. It's something I care a lot more about than any personal milestone my wife and I have crossed is actually the milestones our team has crossed. And so the way you do it is, just these 5 things that I've covered here, and I'm going to really flesh them out and get into them. And so let's just kick it off. Let's just get going. So number 1 of how to stop your agents from quitting. Point number 1 is have a strong personal example. Here's the truth. How your dynamic within your team has very little actually to do with your team. And it actually has quite a bit to do with you. And the number 1 sign that I tend to find of a weak leader, and by the way, this is one of the fastest ways you can actually tick me off. I hate hearing this. If I ever hear this come out of the mouth of someone I know, I usually check them on it because it bothers me. The number 1 sign of a weak leader is they complain about what their team isn't doing, right? I hear this all the time from team leads, SMDs, trainers are like, oh, my team's not recruiting. Oh, my team's not writing business. Oh, so-and-so's not getting into licensing. And the only thing I can think about, is anytime I hear that from people, I usually tend to pull up their numbers and I look at their personal numbers. And, it's interesting that the guys that are always complaining about their team not doing anything, you know what they all have in common? Their personal numbers suck. They're not personally recruiting. They're not personally producing. They're not taking on clients. Their cash flow's in the gutter. And then you wonder why their team doesn't do anything. The truth is, you guys, your team is going to do 50% of what you do right. And they'll do 200% of what you do wrong. And especially in our industry, especially in our company, you are not a manager, right? You don't get to manage your team. You have no contractual control over your agents. You can't fire them. You can't cut their pay. You can't tell them when they have to be at work and when they shouldn't be at work. All you can do is coach them and give them advice and hope they listen. And the way that they listen is if you have a strong personal example. And the truth is, the reality is, you will be an example in this business. You will be an example within this organization to your team. The choice is whether you will be a good or a bad example. Like it or not, you'll be an example. You have no control over that, but you can control whether you're a good or bad example. So you better be a good example. So what does a strong personal example mean? It means that you are leading from the front in terms of the metrics and the numbers that matter. So let me ask you a question. What are your personal numbers like for recruiting? What are your personal numbers like for production? Are you getting wide? Are you recruiting new frontline leaders? Are you training new agents? Are you going into the field and taking on clients? Are you personally producing? Are you getting a rocking cash flow? Right? I mentioned in our last episode, I was talking about this, about how to get into a better market. One of the beautiful things that I love, a great relationship dynamic that I have with my team is my team knows that I don't need them to make money. I got a guy in my organization. I love him. His name's Eddie. And Eddie came from the industry prior. He's worked with different companies in the past. He was making six figures at every single one of them within our industry, different companies in finance. And when I brought him on board, one thing I talked about with him is I was like, the key thing that this guy had in common at every single company he went to, actually, I won't name the companies, but every company he went to, every single one of the guys above him relied on him to pay their bills, relied on him. He was the top producer. He was cranking it with the team. He was going out and taking on all the clients and writing all the premium and doing all the insurance business and all the investments. And they relied on him to pad their bank account with the override. And so one thing I told him when we first started, I was like, I want you to know this is the first team you've ever been on where I don't need you to pay my bills. I don't need you for me to make money, right? And the dynamic that creates is now it goes from like this parasitic relationship of like your guys feel like you need them to make it money to now it's like we're business partners. And there's a respect there where I can go to a guy like that who, to be honest with you, when I brought him on board, he was making more money than I was. He had a higher income with his company than I did. But because I was a strong enough personal producer, we had a dynamic where there was a mutual respect and I could still coach him and lead him. And it's been a blessing to have that relationship and that dynamic. So the reason why that's so important, you guys, is because does your team feel like you need them? And that is one of the worst spots you can be in as a leader. If your team feels like you need them, you are screwed, right? Because now they start to have this really, really, really toxic relationship and this bad dynamic with you where now they're like they feel like everything you're telling them, every bit of advice you give them, every area of coaching you give them is coming from a place of, oh, he needs me to pay his bills. Oh, he's just telling me to get wide so that he can write the personal plans and he can train that agent and he can override it all. He needs me for this, right? Oh, he wants me to go take on some clients or get in the field because he needs the splits on all the business. That is a bad spot to be. That's a bad spot to be because then what starts to happen too is now not only do they not respect you as a leader, but what's going to ultimately happen is if you don't have a strong personal example within your team to your guys, eventually at some point, one of your guys is going to start out producing you. He's going to start out recruiting you. You're going to have a dude in your team who has a bigger leg and he's a larger net team than you. And then all of a sudden, it ain't your team anymore. It's his team because he's the one leading by example. He's the personal producer. He's the one going and getting wide. He's putting results on the board. He's making money. And then all your guys start, even if they're direct to you, even if they're not even on his team, guess who they start going to for advice, for direction, for coaching, for mentorship? Guess who they want to work with? Him. And if you and that guy aren't aligned, it gets really, really tough. And even if you are aligned, there's always still going to be tension because he's always going to know in the back of his head and he's always going to have agents telling him too that, you know what, I just respect you more than the guy whose team we're actually on, right? That's what they're going to tell him. And that's a tough spot to be. You don't want to be in that spot. You want to be in a position where your agents know, hey, you know what? I love you. I want to work with you, but I don't need you. I can replace you in a minute, right? And that's not in a bad toxic way. That's not in a, oh, here's the door, don't let it hit you on the way out mentality. That's I'm working with you because I want to work with you. Let's be business partners. Let's build something together. I'm in the game. You are in the game. Let's go, right? Not, hey, I need you to help build my business. So you need to be a strong personal example. A, because it creates a way healthier dynamic between you and your team. But also B, my second point with this is because it actually shows your guys what to do. Too many people in this industry are training on things that worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago in their glory days that isn't really relevant anymore. Yeah, so conceptually, a lot of the stuff might still be the same, but I don't want to learn from a guy who's training on theory. One of the greatest blessings that I've had in my career is I get to learn from a guy like Holbrook, who's been here 22 years and is still in the game. Still beats most people to the office, right? Is in the office by 7 or 8 a.m., still on field appointments, still here 7 days out of the week, still in the game, still making calls, still on every training, never takes a sick day. Because I'm learning from a guy who's actually doing it. I tell all of my agents when it comes to field training, the greatest blessing that I had is I got to learn from a guy making $2 million a year in the industry, running the top team in Canada. And my guys get to learn from a dude making 20 to 40 grand a month, right? I am not training on theory. I'm showing the things that I'm actually doing that actually work, that actually make money, because they're working in real time for me, right? So that's what you want your guys to see. You want them to see you doing the things that actually work so they know what to do, because it's not theory, it's application. It's being done in front of them. Give them a good example. Set them up for success. No one can follow you if you're not in motion. It's hard to follow a leader that's not moving. And one of the big reasons why people quit is they hop on a team and they go, holy crap, no one's winning here. The leader's checked out. He's not doing anything. I'm gone. I'll go back to my job, right? And then you know what happens? 6 months later, they get prospected and recruited to a different team. And then they blow up. Is your example strong enough that you can recruit and retain an animal and keep him in your business? Which leads to number 2. You need a winning culture. You need a winning culture. There's a lot of ways you set up a winning culture, but for those of you who are sitting there and you're thinking, okay, Trey, this is great, but what if I don't have a winning culture, right? What if we're all broke? What if all my guys are quitting? We're not making any money. We're not producing. We're not recruiting. My culture is not that of a winner right now. What do I do? Well, you know what? There are some things that you can do artificially to actually improve that. Now, the first thing I would say is, before anything, you have to refer back to number 1. Before your team can have a winning culture, you should probably be a winner, right? You can't create a winning culture in your team if you're a lame duck, if you're not doing anything, if you're not producing, if you're not recruiting, if you're not winning, if you're not going out there and making money. If you do not set a strong example, you can't set that culture in your team. So that's the first part. But the second thing is, there are things that you can do artificially to create a winning culture within your team that eventually takes off. One thing that I did at the very beginning, we have in Canada, we have WhatsApp. That's how we communicate with all of our guys. We have separate chats. I know in the States, you guys do different things, but I got 3 different chats, right? I got my main chat, which is for all of my agents, whether they're licensed or unlicensed, everybody goes in there, right? Then I got my licensing chat, which is where all my licensed agents, all my agents that are in licensing go into for studying and tutoring and all that stuff. And then I got my full-timers chat, which is my licensed agents that are full-time, that are actively engaged in the game. So a couple of things that I do. Number 1, I enroll them all in the role of creating energy. And what I mean by energy is I want them communicating in the chats. I want them being a positive force. I don't want to be the only voice in my chats. I want my guys popping into the WhatsApp, sounding off, sharing good news, talking about how they help families, talking about the wins of their teammates, all that stuff. I want them doing that every day, 24/7, right? That is a huge, huge, huge thing, because now they know that there's more than just Trey in the chat winning. It's more than just Trey trying to pump everybody up. They look at the team and they're like, oh, Jared's sounding off, Eddie's sounding off, Crystal's sounding off, Abby's sounding off. Wow, there's a lot of people here that have good news, that are talking about families being helped. If I'm a new agent and I see that really tells me something. That gives me something. That gives me a feeling when I first start off in the business of shit, people are winning here, right? Getting fired up about this topic, right? But the other side of it as well too is I enroll them in a role of, now above and beyond that, start going out there and communicating individually with your agents. Start doing the same thing with them. Communication is one of the best ways to create culture, because the communication that you have sets the tone of the culture you're creating. So if your guys are talking to all your guys and having great conversations, all your leaders are talking to your people, it creates this feeling of, now it's this interconnected web of, it's more than just Trey. And then on top of it, you should be communicating with all your people one-on-one every single day, talking about wins. If you don't have a lot of wins, that's fine. Make wins out of everything. Boom, Billy just passed his first cert exam. Congrats, Billy. We're so proud of you. Here's what your license is going to get to do for you. Sound off in the chat, right? Boom, Skippy just made his first phone call, but didn't book a meeting, but wow, he got a ton of great experience. He's so good on the phone. We're so proud of him, right? You can turn anything into a win. And then as you start to congratulate your guys and hero make them and make them feel really special and good. They don't know, like a lot of times when new agents start, they don't feel like they're doing anything. They don't even know if they're doing a good job. So constantly reinforce them, make them feel good, you guys. And the more you do that, the more activity will start to pop up. And the more you have wins that you can celebrate, which then creates a stronger culture because it'll happen more and more and more and more. The volume of it increases. And then on top of it, what you should be doing above creating energy, above communication, above recognizing is you should be creating environments and areas where your guys can get together. Now, this is going to change based on the team you're on. There's teams out there that are almost entirely virtual, right? Our team is, and there's teams out there that are almost entirely in person. There's no virtual, right? They have an office space. They all work in the office to create an in-person environment. Our team is kind of a hybrid, right? We have a central hub in Calgary, Alberta, where a lot of my guys are in, but then I also have agents all across Canada and multiple provinces, and now we're starting to build in the States. So you have to find ways for all of your guys to come together to feel like they belong to something, whether you're in person or not in person. If you're in person, get your guys out to your house for a barbecue or a games night or whatever, an opportunity to get people together, right? One thing I love to do with agents on my team when I feel like they're going to be like really good, like if I feel like they're a runner, I start to incorporate them to almost feel like it's a family dynamic. I invite them out to like in the summers. I got a guy on my team. He's his wife did the baby photos for my youngest daughter. We prospected them, made them clients, brought them on board. He's now in the business with me. My number one associate, his name is Jared. Earlier this year during the summer, what do you think I did with Jared? I would invite him to all of our family gatherings, right? I'd invite Amanda, his wife, to all of our family gatherings because I wanted to spend as much time with them as possible because I knew I want to be able to have more one-on-one time to work with him, to coach him, but also B, I wanted to create this family dynamic with him because I knew at some point there was going to be some hard shit that happened to him in the business. He was going to have a chargeback, a teammate would quit, or there would be a string of losses or maybe a slow month, a bad month, where I knew that when that hard stuff happened, I needed to be able to leverage my relationship with him to keep him in the business. And guess what? It did happen. He did have a string of things that went wrong and he did get slapped around a little bit in the business. And at that point, I'm able to talk to him as a friend, not as a senior partner. And that's how I kept him in the business. And now he's the number one associate in my team for the year. So that stuff, you guys, is really, really powerful. Leveraging that, using that. It's really, really, really powerful. Do that stuff. Find ways that you can get all your guys together, whether it's one-on-one, group setting, and just have like one thing I want to do with my guys here is like, I want to do a boys' night where we all go for like the Gladiator movie, right? Like going to do stuff like that, right? You can Zoom setting, get everybody together on Zoom. How about do like a trivia night or a games night? Or, you know what, one thing that I do is I do a team huddle every morning with all my players, right? I get all my guys together in the morning. We just chat about what they got going on for the day. We talk about what's in the pipe. And then honestly, we just kind of shoot the shit and goof around for a little bit, right? I'm building relationships with them. These are all ways that you build culture. And you know what? The good news is as long as you're just communicating a ton with your people, you're going to build culture. You're going to build culture. So that's a key thing. Number 2 is build a winning culture. Number 3 is a simple, streamlined system. Stop making everything so complicated, right? So most agents, when they come in, especially in our company, they come from lines of work that are not the financial industry. I was a 19-year-old university dropout who worked with the government of Canada and got laid off after a year of working there alongside 140 other people. I did not have any right being in this industry. I mentioned my buddy Jared, who's our top associate. He came from oil and gas. He was making $170,000 a year in oil and gas working night shift. He did not come from the financial services industry. I got a girl on my team who second month license is already the top marketing director, income earner in our whole hierarchy for November. She came from finance, but she'd only worked at her prior company for about 7 months. And before that, she was in aesthetics and sales and small business, right? Did not come from a financial services industry prior to getting into her previous company and then coming on board with me, right? One of my top, I got another girl named Alexis, who's also one of our top associates. She comes from a physiotherapist background and a coaching background. She's awesome, right? Almost no one on our team came from a financial services background. So the reason why I'm saying this to you guys is because you have to set your guys up for success. The more simple you can make something, the better. Because newsflash, this business is not easy. This is not an easy business to win in. This is not an easy business to be in. So make it as simple as possible. It doesn't have to be easy if it's simple. The worst thing that could happen is you onboard a new agent. They got no financial background and they're like, shit, the business is hard and it's complicated. This sucks, right? As long as it's hard, but it's simple and they know what they have to do, at the very least, they have a chance, right? At the very least, they have a chance. So what do I mean by a simple, streamlined system? Well, it's simply that, a system. In our hierarchy, in our team, the way we do it, we got a 10-step process of bringing on a new agent. All right. So what we do is within the first 7 days, we want them to do certain things, right? We want to get their personal plan taken care of. We want them to get into licensing. We want to get them on 3 training appointments within the first 7 days, right? We call it their core 3, right? Not with the purpose of making a sale or recruiting to the team. We just want to get on appointments so that we can leave a really, really good impression in their immediate market, teach them a bunch of stuff. And then on top of it, get some referrals built up for that agent, right? I want that new agent to see what we actually do and get them immediate wins. That is a huge, huge thing. And then we talk about the first 30 days of what we do, right? I want them to get their, I want them to observe 2 recruiting appointments, 2 client appointments. I want them to get through licensing, right? Our system process is literally step by step from brand new, just got a broker code, just got into licensing to 10 steps later. Now they're an agency owner making over $100,000 a year, right? Step by step by step by step by step by step. Everything is laid out. Everything is laid out. The reason why a lot of people quit, you guys, is because they feel like they don't know what to do next. They feel like they don't know what the next step is. And that's what happens is if you don't know what the next step is, so agents come in, they get licensed, they start to flounder for a little bit. And when they start floundering, they get distracted, they get unfocused, they start to have some chargebacks, maybe a teammate or 2 quits. And now not only do they feel like they're not progressing, they feel like they're taking a step back. They're getting hits to their confidence. It's a knock to their personal confidence. And so they quit because they don't feel like they're winning and they don't know how to progress. They don't know what to do moving forward. They don't know what their next step is. So create a simple, streamlined process. Create a system that they can follow, right? And we take it to the nth degree. What we do is we have a 10-step process, a 10-step system of what to do, but then we also have a virtual university that we built from the ground up that has all of our training resources, all of our presentations, everything, literally all of our product training, scripts, phone calls with modular videos, how to do it. And then on top of it, we also have another process to follow of like, okay, here's what you should be doing in the first 30 days, in the first 2 weeks, in the first 1 week, in the first 7 days, all of it. How easy is it for someone to come into the business, you sit down with them, orient them, and they know where all of their resources are, they know what all the next steps are, and then they know what they have to do to continue, right? It's something that if you're on one of those teams where a lot of your culture is still in person, it's a lot easier because you're typically working with your trainer all the time or your SMD all the time, and you know exactly what to do for the next step because you're with them, right? You're physically with them. But when you're over Zoom and you got a team that's primarily remote, they're at home all day. You don't know what they're doing, right? So the only way that you can counteract that is yes, through a ton of personal communication, but also give them a easy to follow system, right? Because the more excuses you give them to not do things, the more they will take it. Right? So create a simple, streamlined system. Make everything as easy and as duplicatable as possible. Because the more complicated you make things, the harder it is to retain. People will come on board, see your system. If it's complicated, it's hard, they don't know what to do. They'll just filter out. If I come into something and I'm like, okay, I'm already not in the industry, I've already got some self-confidence issues. I already kind of feel in the back of my head that I can't do this. And now I see, oh my God, everything's really complicated. I'm out. Right? So you want to make sure that you got a simple, streamlined system. So build one out and work it, right? And it takes time. It takes time to create a winning system. We've had many systems over our career. We've now built one that I think is probably the best system I've ever seen in the company. And then on top of it, it's the best system I've ever seen in my whole career. And it's worked really, really well for us. But it takes time to refine. It takes a lot of time to refine. Number 4 is a focus on immediate results. There's an interesting thing about our industry. In the traditional side of the industry, companies outside of, more, you think of the legacy institutions and you'll understand what I'm talking about. On the traditional side of the industry, there is about roughly, don't quote me on this because I don't have the exact number in front of me, but roughly about an 80 to 84% burn rate on agents after the first year. So what do I mean by that? It means typically on average, 80 to 84% of new agents do not renew their license past the first year. They quit the industry. In our company, there's a stat we found. We retain roughly 90% of our agents after the first year. 90% retention. And we'll retain roughly about 75% of them after the first 3 years within our team. So why is that? Well, one of the big reasons for it is because we have a focus on immediate results. And what I mean by a focus on immediate results is how quickly are you trying to get your guys an actual win? And this is going to sound a little bit weird, but this is just how my brain works. I like to imagine like a heartbeat monitor when a new agent starts up. So like when I bring on a new agent, right? And I feel responsible for you, and you should too. I feel a sense of responsibility for all of our agents when they come on board. And the reason I look at it is because if someone's going to come on board and give me their time and they're going to spend $150 for a broker code and $100 to get into licensing, and yeah, we reimburse all that stuff and that's cool, but it's still a commitment of time and money at the beginning. I have a feeling of immense responsibility that I need to get them results, that I need to show up for them. Now they have to meet me halfway. They got to work too, but I feel responsible for their success to an extent. One of the biggest things that I have in my brain is I picture a heartbeat monitor where after the first 24 hours, the heartbeat monitor starts to slow down. After the next 48 hours, the heartbeat monitor starts to slow down. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, Trey, that's only 2 days. Holy crap, man. Like, what do you mean? They only got 2 days. Honestly, most of your guys only have 48 hours of not getting a result or a win before they start to lose enthusiasm and want to quit. Just being straight up. Because in that first 48 hours, especially for most people's markets aren't super supportive. And so if you haven't gotten in their market, left a really good impression, shown them a few wins, maybe got them their first teammate, here's what's likely happened. They went and talked to their friends. They went and talked to their market. They got blown up by their market. Their friends are saying it's some kind of deal, or they don't fully understand it, or they're doing the whole, oh, be careful with that thing, right? That thing. And so they're getting pushback on their market. They're not getting any wins. And then because you didn't get them in the field, guess what? They're probably in licensing getting bored to tears. And so they're getting pushback. They're getting negative feedback. They're not getting any wins. And now they're having to stare at a textbook and they're bored out of their minds. The biggest mistake I see agents make is they don't get immediate results and they just funnel them off to licensing. They just send all their guys off to licensing. And that's where agents go to die. So how do we fix this? Well, the first thing is immediate results. So getting into the field with them as fast as possible. So that's why I was saying within the first 48 hours of a new agent, we like to run something called a core 3. Core 3 is I want to sit down with the 3 closest people in your life and just show them what we do, right? Leave a really great impression with them, answer all their questions, make sure they support you, get a few referrals, and allow you to see the presentation with somebody else. I want to get some results. Then what I'm also trying to do is I'm trying to get that person their first teammate. I want to get them some form of result. A teammate is best, right? Because now they got a running mate. They got a buddy in the field with them. And it's very, very unusual and it's unlikely that an agent will quit if they now have an agent alongside them. If they have a teammate with them. If you get your buddy a buddy, highly unlikely they quit on their buddy. So you got to find them the buddy, right? Where's the buddy at, right? So I'm trying to find them a buddy. And then on top of it, I'm trying to get them through licensing as fast as possible. I want my agents in licensing in as small amount of time as I possibly can have them in there for. In the States, you can get people through quickly, like in a matter of days. In Canada, it's longer, but it should still be done within about a week to 2 weeks that they're passing their certs and going on to provincials. And then all you got to wait for is licensing times, application times. That's all you got to wait for. So I'm trying to get them through it as quickly as possible because what I want to do is I want to make them their first $1,000. You want to know something crazy? In our company, the stat is an agent who makes their first $1,000, 90% retention. That's where the 90% comes from. An agent who makes their first $1,000, it's called the net license. We have a 90% retention on that agent. So what do you think I'm trying to bum rush to? I'm trying to beeline as fast as I can that agent to net license as fast as possible. getting some results along the way, getting them a bunch of really positive feedback along the way, right? But I'm trying to make them their first $1,000 as quick as I possibly can, because I know once I do that, boom, 9 out of 10 odds that I'm going to keep that agent long term. And then if I can keep them, I can build them, and I can get him to, if I can make him his first $1,000, we can make 5,000, we can make 10,000, we can make 20,000. We can actually start to make some real money, start to build them a team, and actually start to get them to a point where this is turning into a real career where they can pay their bills, look after their family, and make consistent, good income. And that's why I'm bum rushing and beelining all the way to net recruit, right? Net license. That's what I want. It's that first $1,000. So what's your focus on immediate results? And ultimately, it just boils down to whether you're a strong leader or a weak leader. If you have weak leadership, then you won't get into the field with your agents quickly. You won't try and get them trained up. You won't try and get into their market and leave a really great result with them. You won't try and find them their first teammate, because what will ultimately happen is you'll allow the discomfort. Your new agents come in, they don't know what they're doing. They have no comfort level with making calls, getting in the field, all that stuff. Some do, most don't. And so because of that, you'll allow the new agent to dictate how they are trained. You'll let the tail wag the dog when it should be the other way around. And so that agent, if you're a weak leader, won't get in the field, won't make calls, will go straight into licensing, not get any results. And guess what they're going to do anyways? They're going to quit because they're bored, not getting results. They're getting pushed back from their market because you didn't lead them strong enough. I would rather blow an agent out of my company within the first week because I tried to lead them correctly, the right way, and they didn't want to do it, than have them dictate how they're trained and they're here for 2 months getting no results, making no money, bleeding on the vine. I'd rather just save them the time, save them the money, and save my time as well too. It's better in the long term, right? If you're a strong leader, you dictate the terms of how someone is trained within your organization. You're the leader. You're the one who runs the brokerage. You run the agency. You know what has to be done because you went through and did it. So coach your guys, train them correctly, do it the right way so they can see immediate success. And when you start getting them immediate results, this becomes real for them. It's a common feedback I hear all the time in our industry and all the time in our company is, if somebody makes their first check and they're like, holy crap, this thing is real. Yeah, it's real because now you finally made some money. You paid your bills, right? Whew. Can tell I get really, really passionate about this topic. And I do get passionate about it because this is important to me, and this should be important for you too, you guys. We have a responsibility within building our agency, building our brokerage, that when we bring on a new agent, we do everything we can to help them see success and help them grow. It's our responsibility. To be honest with you, straight up, your agent's success in the beginning has more to do with you than it does with them. Yes, they have to meet you halfway, and yes, they got to do a little bit of work. But to be honest, it's mostly on you. And so I get really, really fired up with this because I don't like seeing agents who could do really, really well in our industry and within our company who don't because they didn't get started out correctly. They weren't trained correctly. They were on a weak team, and it's just sad to see. And so it's sad to be leading a team that's like that, right? I've been a weak leader before. I've had a weak team before. I've had weak culture before. I've had guys that weren't winning before. And it sucks. And you put a lot of guilt on yourself. And so you don't want to be in that position. So, all right, number 5. Just show them you care. That's it. I remember one time, Ed Milet, who's one of the top guys in our company, top guy in our industry, actually, agency chairman of our, actually, I guess, changed the role, but chairman of our company. He said something where I thought it was interesting. He was like, women are inherently better leaders than men. And I was like, well, that's a funny thing to say. I'm like, why do you say that? And he goes, well, the reason for it is because most people, all they want to know is, does my senior partner, does my coach, my mentor, my trainer, whoever, does he love me? Does he care about me? And does he want to help me? Will he help me? And the reason why women are inherently better leaders than men is because they have that maternal instinct where they are just really, really good at that to begin with. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be a great leader and do all of those things as a man. Of course you can, right? Especially if you're a parent. It helps if you're a parent because you already kind of have that inherently built in with your kids. So now you just take it to your team, right? And the weird thing is, I know this sounds strange, but honestly, The parallels between having young kids, young daughters, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 16-month-old, the parallels between being a dad to those three and training a team and building a team are almost identical. Honestly, more often than not, a lot of the stuff I do with my daughters, I do with my teammates. Because here's the thing. Most people ultimately, at the end of the day, just want to know, does he love me? Does he care about me? And does he want to help me? And does he want me to win? And so the biggest thing you can do for your guys is show them you care. You know, I said earlier at the beginning, one thing I like to do with my guys, especially if I think they're a runner or an up and comer, is I spend a lot of time with them one-on-one, right? I will go out for a dinner or drinks with my guys one-on-one if I feel like they're in a low place. I will make that phone call and ask them how their daughter's doing. I will invite them out to the family gatherings and spend time with them one-on-one because I want them to see me as a person and as a friend. And yeah, some people don't like doing it. They get frustrated with it. Look, whatever. I'm just saying it's what I do. Because every single one of my top guys at some point has had hard shit happen to them in this business that I needed to be able to leverage my personal relationship with them to keep them in the business. And the reason why that's so key is because I had hard stuff happen to me in this business. I had a really, really crappy start in WFG. I had a really, really crappy SMD. And if it wasn't for my senior partner, right, you know, the guy who basically is the only reason I'm here, if it wasn't for Steve, if it wasn't for the relationship that Hallbrook and I had, I would not be here anymore. Because him and I had a really close relationship, because I felt that he cared about me and he wanted to help me and he wanted me to succeed and that he loved me and my family. I felt like he had good intentions, that he cared about me. And that's why I stayed. And now here we are. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I think of it like this. I'm an analogy guy. I'm a visual guy, in case you can't tell. I'm always trying to make deposits into the emotional piggy bank of my agents. I'm trying to prick coins in over and over and over again because I know at some point I'm going to have to take a withdrawal from that piggy bank. My agent has a rough chargeback or a series of rough chargebacks, wants to quit. My agent has his top guy quit, and now he wants to quit. My agent has 2 months where he's not making any money, and now he wants to quit. My agent had one of his close family members or even their spouse say, hey, this business isn't working. You need to quit. What I mean by withdrawal is I need to be able to make a withdrawal from that emotional piggy bank. I need to be able to leverage my relationship with that agent to keep them in. And if I haven't made deposits, if my agent doesn't think that I care about them, I love them, I respect them, I'm here for them, and I want them to win, I can't do that. I do not have an emotional factor that I can leverage. I don't have a relationship that I can leverage to keep them in the business. And so that's ultimately the biggest thing. One of our key secrets, I guess. Silly to even call it a secret because it should be something we all do. But one of the key ingredients to our team and our retention and why we grow the way that we do and why our people make the money that they do is because we treat our team like a family and we have that dynamic. We all spend time together. We all talk to each other. We all have a strong relationship and culture. And that is something that is worth its weight in gold. So that's ultimately it. At the end of the day, show your guys that you care about them. And that will go, honestly, you could get rid of points 1 through 4. And as long as your guys know that you care about them and you would die on the cross for them and you jump in front of the bus for them and you're in the trenches with them and you got their back, as long as they know that, you could get rid of the other 4 and you could still be able to retain an amazing field force. So I don't want to say that any one point is more important than the others. You should be doing all of these. But if I had to put a little star beside one, point number 5 would be the biggest. Show them you care. It goes a long way. The little things go a long way. The little text to your agent asking them how they're doing or how their day was. The phone call at the end of a long day, just saying, hey, buddy, I was thinking about you, just checking in, just wanted to know how you're doing, right? If you're one of your agent's kids gets sick, calling them up saying, hey, how are they doing? How are they feeling, right? If one of your agents is going through a rough time, reaching out to them. right? Inviting them out for dinner, having a sit down with them one-on-one, right? Especially when a new agent starts, take them out for dinner, take them out for a lunch, get to know them, get to know their story, all that stuff. Those little things go such a long way because it builds a relationship and a friendship. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got from my senior partner, he told me your goal with every single one of your agents should be to try and get invited into the wedding party. You want to be in the wedding party. Does that mean you're going to be in? Obviously not. But that should be the goal. I want to be in the wedding party of all my agents. I want to have a relationship like that with all of them where I'm in the wedding party, right? Because I'm trying to build a relationship. I want them, before they think of me as their leader and their senior partner, I want them to think of me as someone who cares about them more than anything. So that's it. So to recap, number one is you have to have a strong personal example. Please don't ever be the person who complains that his team isn't doing something. You do something. You lead by example. You be the number one guy. You should always be competing to be the number one guy in your organization. You should always be a strong personal example of what to do, right? Don't be training on theory. Train on what works. Train on application. Number two is a winning culture. Your guys should know that when they come on board your team, that they can win here. That the vision that's cast, that the ceiling is set so high, the bar is set so high that they can fit all their goals and dreams within you and your team, right? If you recruited the next animal, the next monster, the next giant of the industry, if you recruited the next Ed Milet, the next Steve Holbrook, the next Raja Dhaliwal, the next whoever, if you recruited that next guy, is there enough space on your team for him? Right? Do you have a culture that could keep a guy like that? Number three is a simple, streamlined system. Make things as easy and as duplicatable as possible. It's how you scale. It's how you grow. 99% of your guys are coming from outside of the industry with no financial background, no money experience. They don't know how it works. They're a little insecure. They're uncertain. They have concerns. Give them as easy and as simple of a process to follow as possible, backed up with incredible coaching and hands-on training. And then number four is a focus on immediate results. Get your guys a win. Do not be the weak leader who brings them in, falls for their excuses, allows them to dictate the terms of their training, and really all they wind up doing is they never get in the field, they get sent off to licensing, they die in licensing, and they quit anyways 2-3 months later by silently taking themselves out without even saying goodbye. And then finally, just show them you care. Just care about your guys, genuinely care about them. Be there every single time. Listen to me. There will come points in your career, times in your career, where you will have to make choices between things that benefit just you or benefit your team. And sometimes you'll have to make choices that might actually hurt you a little bit, detriment you a little bit, but they help your guys. Always pick the team, because that kind of decision will go way further than anything that can reward you in the short term. The long-term seeds that you plant, the long-term wins will always be way better. So that's everything. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of this. This has been the Founders Corner. I've been your host, Trey Lansdell, and I cannot wait to go and have our next episode and see you all next time. So take care. Have a great one. Bye.